Welcome to IceTime.TV, and I am delighted to be joined for an extended sit-down interview, Cardiff Devils and Great Britain goalie, Ben Bowns. So Ben, take us way back to when you're first exposed to hockey. Who was your first goaltender inspiration?
Back when I was 6, it would have been. We went to see Sheffield Steelers game. It was Steelers against the Devils, actually, which I've done a lot of interviews talking about. That's kind of ironic now, how kind of my career's turned out. But no, it was, I can't remember the Devils goalie. It might have been Lilly, might not have been, I'm not 100% sure. But no, the Steelers goalie was Wayne Cowley at the time. And I was a huge fan of Wayne Cowley. Back that first year that I started watching him, what was kind of cool is when Sheffield and Cardiff had the anniversary games, I can't remember how many years back it was, I was playing for the Steel Dogs back then. I got to play in one of the Legends games in Sheffield, and Wayne Cowley was the goalie, so got to back him up for a period and then take over for a period, so it was kind of cool.
Did you ever toy with any other position when you decided to take up hockey, or was it always get that mask, get those pads on, get on the ice?
No, I always wanted to be a goalie, but the kit was dead expensive. So my mum and dad thought it might be a bit of a fad and didn't want to spend too much money on it for me to give it up within a few weeks. So started out as a player, and we joined the Sheffield Junior Club. Then had a house league system that the head coach back then, a guy called Craig Webster, a big part of my career, obviously growing up and with him just setting the club up like he did. No, he had a system where he set up a house leagues game, and you could go and join that and play in that. And I went to that for a few weeks. Went to a hockey school. My grandma still has the pictures up in a house, and I think it says Easter 1997. I was a player, but I used to spend more time in the net than the goalie, so I think my mum and dad in the end just gave in and bought me the kit. And then she has another picture underneath that initial one that says summer 97, and I was a goalie. So like what, probably three months or so as a player, and then to a goalie, and not looked back since.
When did your style that you have now kind of develop? When did you, in your junior career, kind of get taught what the different styles were, and how did you kind of find your comfort then in the crease?
Well, I think I was kind of lucky because I had quite a few goalie coaches in Sheffield. Never always constant or consistent, if you want for a better word. But I did have more than what a lot of junior goalies tend to have, especially these days. And no, they just let me kind of do your own thing, and that's one of the big things when you're coaching goalies, especially young ones. You have to let them develop your own style. Every goal is different, and then you just help fine tune them, and that's exactly what they did. And I think the big turning point for me was I used to be quite an intense goalie before, like an intense person before a game, and really kind of get into it visually and stuff like that. And then I played with Passy Wrighton, and just seeing how relaxed he was before a game, and the consistency that he showed game in, game out was just unreal. And he was so loose before a game. He just enjoyed it, and learning to be a bit more relaxed, a bit more loose, just made it so much more fun, so much more enjoyable. And then my consistency started coming and getting better and better. And then obviously jumped to Hull. That's a big learning curve those first 2 years, and then the first year in Cardiff, absolutely massive. And my first year in Cardiff, I was very set, very square, very blocky. Tried to fill as much of the net as I could, and I've always been a big guy. Someone said too big, but no, I've always been big. And then obviously I met Dan Brabham, who's still coaching me now. Speak to him daily, pretty much about games, about trainings, about things that I've done good in games, things that I've done bad in games that he likes to point out. And yeah, Dan made little adjustments that year, and to be fair, I think when I first met Dan that first year, I think I was running around 89% save average, which you always want above 90. But that year I jumped up to the Devils. We're playing in the big conference now. So I was kind of accepting, but I was still frustrated. And Dan came on board. He started working with me working on a few things with me. And I think the run-in from him working with me to the end of the season, I think I hit about 93% for those months. We won the Challenge Cup. Not looked back since. Got sent out to Calgary actually that first summer. Worked with David Marcoux, and he changed me to an even more kind of active style, a bit more relaxed in my stance rather than set. And I think that change, along with a little adjustments that Dan had already made, were a massive game changer for myself.
Talk about stick handling for a moment. Something which I think certainly we've commented on during the streams and watching you over the years is that seems to be an aspect of your game that you seem to actively enjoy, and this year especially, you seem to be playing the puck a lot more frequently, keeping things moving. Has that been down to working with Dan, and is that something you've worked on together? Is it to do with a new rule change as well, where you've been asked to maybe play things a bit more frequently?
Yeah, I mean, I've been asked to play more and more every year, to be fair, and I mean, I can remember Lordo making a comment after he'd moved out of the big blue tent, saying that every time I played the puck in the tent, it was like a crapshoot, as he put it. But as much as I love Lordo, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I mean, the ice there were terrible. I mean, everyone's on you, and you come out of your net, and it was just like carnage, basically. It was hard for any goalie to play the puck. But no, since we moved to this arena, it's so much easier. You got a lot more time. You can see everything a lot better. And no, we work on it with Dan. We work on it with Mark in Calgary, but a lot of the time I work on it with Murdy, with Mad Dog. Even if it's just throwing pucks back and forth. And the big change for me as well is I moved from the wooden fiberglass sticks to carbon fiber, and it's just a total different ball game with those sticks. You got so much more control over everything, and it's once the old sticks used to go, they used to really go floppy. You couldn't control the thing. Then you build in a brand new one. It was stiff. You couldn't really shoot a puck with it, and you never knew where it was going or if you're going to pull it off or not. Whereas these carbon fiber ones, they just tend to, you know what's going to happen. And then obviously with the advancement in the gloves and everything, I use a slightly softer gloves in games now than what I used to. Because I use these softer gloves in a game, it gives me slightly more control over my stick. So that's a big help, big factor.
You mentioned Tom Brady there, and you and Tom have been a pairing now for a couple of years, and it's clear that you have a great relationship. How big has that been for your game, knowing that you've got such a capable person behind you, pushing you, able to give you support, but also someone who you know that, hey, if you don't play well, there's someone there that can take your spot. How has that relationship with Tom developed over the years, and what has it brought to your game?
Well, it's massive for me, to be fair. I mean, I don't think we'd have done what we've done these last 2 and a bit years without Murdy being here. It's unreal to have a guy like that. I mean, I've known him since I was, probably 13. I think we were at the School of Excellence together, and we got on there, and we kind of just progressed. We played against each other, and we'd play in so many finals against each other, big games in the ENL, EPL. We had a couple of years where he was in the elite, whereas I stayed in the EPL to start, and but even those years we played at GB together, and we've always been dead good friends, always got on. But then whenever we're training together, sometimes, especially if we're doing battle drills or anything like that, you look across and Murdy's flying around making all these saves, and he's always been an unbelievable mover. And I still, to this day, I'll still say he's probably the best mover in this league. Still, technically, he's absolutely unreal. Whereas I'm a bigger guy, a bit more clumsy, and I look across like saying he's making all these saves, he's flying around thinking, oh, for God's sake, mate, just kind of let a few in. But then that makes me raise my game, because I can't then just kind of coast along letting goals in, because then I look silly, and it'll be easy for me to lose my spot when you have someone like Murdy behind you. And one of our pet hates is everyone says, you know what, what's it like having a backup like Murdy? And for me, Murdy is not a backup, is a partner. And when you have a goalie that can go in and play, the team doesn't have to play any different to when I'm in the net. It's massive, and I know he's always looking over my shoulder. So it does add that little bit of pressure, but it's good pressure, and that's what you need. You can't go stale, and it's not like we have a competitive relationship, if you want to call it that, because you're always trying to beat each other in training and stuff like that. But we're best friends, and it's not like a love-hate relationship. We love each other, basically, without trying to sound too sickly with that. And that's the kind of thing that you want. You want that kind of relationship with your goalie partner. It just makes stuff so much more fun. And I got to sit across every single day of the week, apart from the one day that we get off every week. Look, and I have to stare at him. So you kind of want someone that you get on with when you got to look at him that amount of time and that often. And I mean, like I said, without Tom, I don't think we'd have done, and I wouldn't have done what I've done these last few years, because it's like a little rock there for me.
We'll touch a little bit on your time at the Hull Stingrays. What did you learn about being a professional in those 2 seasons? How much did you grow in your time at the Stingrays?
I think the first thing I learned with it is a massive grind. Yeah, you got that many games, you're training that many times a week, and it's just constant. And I absolutely love those first 2 years in Hull. The second year I got a big shock. I come back, I'd probably not worked as hard as what I should have done in the summer. I'd done what I thought I needed to do, but I come back and I started off quite slow. And there's obviously the EPL, I could kind of just get away with growing into a season. And all of a sudden, you need to make playoffs in Hull. That was the big game. We had to make playoffs that second year that I was there. We had a great team. We had forwards like Dusail, Lauzon, Tenler, Silverthorne. Great, really good forwards. Some really good D like Jeff Smith, people like that back who were just absolutely solid. And looking around and like we're out of the playoffs, and I think we're conceding 7 goals in some games. And I'm looking at myself, and I can remember the turning point for me were, I can remember Ashley Tate scored a goal in Coventry, and he was behind the goal line, chucked it in from the corner pretty much, and it hits my stick and goes through my legs. And I can remember just thinking, what am I doing? Like, what's wrong with me? Why am I not? Why is this happening all the time? Why is this? And then I realized, like, well, maybe I should start taking it a bit more serious. Maybe, or not that I wasn't taking it serious, but even more serious. Get more focused before a game. Do more off the ice. Work harder in training. Do all the little things, all the little details. And yeah, I can remember having a word with Klutz after that. Obviously, you're scared. You don't want to be first person fired. You never want to be fired at all. But especially, Hull had a bit of a culture where we weren't doing well. Someone had got to go, and whenever any team's not doing well, the first person to look at is the goalie. And yeah, that was a turning point for me. It never come out of Klutz's mouth that they were even thinking about that, but it was just obviously in my own head. And I spoke to him about it, got it through my head, and he's like, "You need to work harder, like any coach would." And yeah, that was a big wake up call for myself. And touch wood since then. I mean, that year I think we went on, from what I can gather, and what I've been told, we went on to, I think we broke the franchise record for points that year. We actually beat Cardiff to the playoffs, which I think I'm allowed to say that now. I've been here a few years.
Yeah, we've got over it now, but it's fine, you know.
So that was a big one. And yeah, I mean, the 2 years I was in Hull, I think that were the first 2 years that the club had made it out of the Challenge Cup group as well. So yeah, so we set a few little records as far as I'm aware with Hull, so that's it makes it even more fun when you learn that kind of things.
You moved then, of course, to Cardiff, another new regime, and you were signed under the old regime and were kept on under the auspices of Andrew Lord and Todd Kelman. That season, many people say that Challenge Cup win was your coming out party. Do you attribute just the act of winning to have developed you at all, or were you always going to be the same Ben Bowns today, regardless of how that Challenge Cup final went?
I think it's probably pretty much impossible to say that, to be fair, to answer that question. But growing up as in the junior system in Sheffield, we won a lot. Without trying to sound too big, we won pretty much everything from our first few years, right in the under-10s. Right through to under-18s, we won a hell of a lot, and even with the Midlands and then the GB teams in the juniors, we always seem to find a way to win. And we went into that final, and obviously it's back in Sheffield, big rivals. They passed up a chance on signing me. A bit of history there from when I was at the Steel Dogs, from a few things that come out in the press and things like that. And I think, well, it's my first final. I'm just going to enjoy it. We got all the family here, and I can remember before that game, that's probably the calmest I've ever been. Just so I get more nervous, to be fair, in a semi-final than a final, because the final it's there and then. It's one chance. You either do well or you don't. You win or you lose, and you've not really missed out. You've still got to that event. And no, that first final, like I said, it's probably the calmest I've ever been. We go out, I just had fun, and just right from the start, we come out and we see that big wall of Devils fans on the opposite side, and singing that Welsh national anthem. I might not be Welsh, but I absolutely love that national anthem, and it still gives me goosebumps thinking about that. It was unbelievable, and right from that moment, I knew that night we were going to win it. And even when they got that goal in the third period, I thought, you know, I'm not letting this go.
He was in the crease, by the way, for that goal. Just shortly after the first league title comes, from your perspective, was the league title a bit more special because, rightly or wrongly, people do put a question mark on goaltenders purely due to their nationality. There's been a huge debate over decades and decades about British goalies and can they win the league. Obviously, Stephen Murphy, Stevie Lyle have done it in the past. But for you, is that something that nagged at you as a player? Was it just an extra little bit that spurred you on?
I think it always spurs you on as a Brit goalie. I know I said it off camera a few times. It's Brit goals for some reason. Everyone always seems to have some kind of thing about them where they're not as good as what they are. I mean, Murph had it for so many years, and look what Murph did in Belfast. I mean, if Murph hadn't been in Belfast, they probably wouldn't have done what they did all those years. And when Murph got that first league title, I'd just started playing for GB, so I'd got to know him and everything, and it's absolutely massive for a person like Murph to do that and prove everyone wrong. And then to be able to come into Cardiff and finally do that myself and prove people wrong about me as well. I suppose it does add that extra little bit of sweetness to it. But no, you still carry it in, because even now we'll play games, we'll win games, and people say, he's just got a good team around. He's got a good team around him, and is not as good as what he looks, and is this and that. And it's solely because I'm British, and that's the fact at the end of the day. You know, you have to embrace it. You just have to embrace it, see it for what it is, and use a little chip on your shoulder and go out and just prove people wrong. And that's probably, after winning and celebrating with your family, that's probably the most fun thing and most rewarding thing about hockey, is proving people wrong. And touch wood, we've managed to prove people wrong a few times.
Talk about Mark Richardson and Andrew Hotham for a second. They were the first pairing in front of you for a number of years. How much easier is it for all of you to have had that understanding over time? And can you just talk about what made those two so special as a pairing for these last few seasons?
You know, it's hard to explain what made them so good. But you know, you look at Richie, and I don't think you can say enough about Richie. It's just unbelievable. Everything he does offensively, defensively, blocking shots, everything comes first. And I think Hotham would probably be the first one to tell you that he couldn't have been Andrew Hotham without Mark Richardson. And when you pair someone like Richie with a guy like Hoth, who he was so calm in every situation. I mean, there's times where I can remember the first season I'd be talking to people and be like, well, the puck bounced off in front of me, and some D, like when I was back in hold, D kind of panic with it, and they just kind of fluff it into the corner, or they fluff it back into my crease. And Hoth would get there, and there'd be 2 or 3 guys on him battling for a buck, and it toe dragged people in my crease, and I'm like, what is going on? And that was just the kind of guy that Hoth were, and he had so much confidence, but then that confidence spilled out into everyone else. And me as a goalie, just having someone like Hoth in front of me and Richie in front of me as a pairing together, it just calms you right down. Penalty kill, power play, 5-on-5, you know exactly what's going to happen. You know exactly what's going on in front of you, and yeah, it makes my job a hell of a lot easier.
This season there were a lot of different defensive pairings. For a number of years there was some consistency there. You'd have Fournier, Lewis, Hotham, Richardson. This year, no difference in quality player for player, but the pairings were different. When that happened, did you feel you had to take it upon yourself to be a bit more vocal, or is that a part of your game you always feel you've brought?
That's always been a part of my game. I can't play without talking. You hear, I'll play with some guys at GB, and they'll make remarks about their goalies don't really talk much, or they don't say much. I don't understand how goalies can play it without speaking, because for me, I have to be in a game, and if I can help my D-men out, it's going to help me out in the long run, because they're not going to be turning pucks over. They're going to know what they're doing. I can see everything. As a goalie, you can see everything apart from behind your goal. And if the puck's in front of you, then why do you need to know what's behind the goal line, unless it's an opposing player? But you should have seen him in your peripheral anyway. But yeah, it's when our D's on the puck or anything, I'm always shouting. Even when it's down at the other end, I'm always vocal. And yeah, like I say, if I can help my guys out, it makes my job easier.
Moving away from the Elite League, you've played Champions Hockey League, back-to-back promotions with Great Britain. What are the differences for you and your game when you're going to that higher standard in these international competitions?
It's, you know, without trying to sound too weird, it's almost a little bit easier sometimes, because the players are it's more fluid than the Elite League, I think. The hockey in the Elite League is great, but it's a bit more stop-start, it's a bit more clutch and grab, there's more scrambles. You go to these competitions and like the CHL or whatever, it's more free-flowing. there's not as much clutching and grabbing and stick holding and stuff like that, and you can kind of see these plays developing, and it's not, you know, that guys are going to just run the routes, and there might be a shot coming from point, you know that there's a guy there to tip. So you watch that where he's in the elite, there might be 2 or 3 guys there to tip, and it'll hit skates, it'll hit legs, it'll hit people in the bums and stuff like that. Whereas in the CHL and the Worlds, it's a little bit more cleaner. And I think for me as a goalie, it's just that little bit easier to read. And if the D play well in front of me, again, it makes my job a lot easier even more.
What is the secret behind GB's success these last 2 seasons? Back-to-back gold medals, now a Pool A nation against all the odds. Where does it come from?
I just think it's unity. And I know that sounds a bit cliche, but you know what? Every team I've been a part of, I've absolutely loved everyone. But the GB team, it's just something different. It's your national team. You battle against each other year on year, and then you come together. And it's just one big family. And when I mean one big family, it is literally one big family. There's no cliques. Everyone just mingles with everyone. Everyone gets on. There's always jokes. There's always laughing. But then when it comes to game time, everyone knows the roles. Everyone's serious. Everyone knows what's expected, and yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's GB we just seem to have that fight that no other nations seem to have, and people might think we overachieved, and I don't necessarily think that's true. I think we're right where we should be. We've earned that right to be where we are, and we've got to go into this competition in May, and we've got to see it that way. We belong up there, and we know that we're good enough to stay up.
The aim is obviously to stay up in this summer tournament. Would anything less be seen as a disappointment for you?
It'll be disappointing if we don't stay up, yeah, but I think it's going to be a big learning curve, and will be a little adjustment period. But even then, I mean, we've got to go. We've got to embrace that challenge, and whatever happens. We can't be worried about being relegated or staying up. We're just going to take it one game at a time, and you know, we might pull one result out of the bag. We might not. We might pull every single result out of the bag and go on and win it again. You never know, do you? But that'd be some story, wouldn't it? But anything can happen. We're good enough to do damage. We're good enough to get relegated as well. So we'll see. I mean, these teams are so good at that level. It could go either way, and it just depends who plays better on the day.
I'm sure I speak for every Devils fan in the hope that you stick around and for years to come, but I know you're active as well within the next generation of goaltenders. Where do we find the next Ben Bowns, Stephen Murphy? What's the secret to the development of these young goalies coming through? I know a lot of people are trying to crack that case, but for you, what do you think are the keys?
Do you know what? Without trying to sound too controversial, I think it's a lot to do with mentality these days. I think a lot of the goalies I've worked with so many in the past that have had so much potential, and were probably better than me at the age that they were at, but they don't have the drive. And you look at how me and Brady were back then, and I'm sure how Murph and Stevie Lyle were back then. And we just wanted to be the best, and we wanted to work, and it was lives. Whereas now they're more bothered about the hairstyles or how they look or something like that. And these goalies will be the best at their club, but as soon as they come out of the club, they might not be the best anymore, and they don't know how to deal with that. And I think, again, without trying to sound too controversial, like my parents are absolutely awesome. Yeah, I got our only child, so I'm probably spoiled. I'm sure my fiance will tell you that I was spoiled when she hears all stories. But they made me work for stuff, and they made me understand how to get things and what hard work gets you. And I think some kids these days, they get told from a young age that they're amazing. And they might be amazing for their age, but it's a long way to go before they turn pro. And once they start believing that a bit too much, they stop working. And when they hit a bit of a wall, a bit of a hurdle, they don't know how to react. And they kind of see it as everyone's against them when it's not. They just, all they need is a little bit more hard work and a little bit more, I don't know what the word I'm looking for is, but just a bit more drive. Just within themselves. And people, no one's going to do it for them. Coaches can guide them, parents can guide them, but at the end of the day, those individuals have to get there themselves, and they have to work out all these problems, all these hurdles that they're going to come up against. They have to work a way to get over it, and I think that's the biggest thing. Any of these good young goalies, we've got a fair few in Cardiff coming up already. They're going to go through these little tests in life in hockey, and they've got to find a way through it, and that's where they're going to come from. If we manage to find a good goalie that's level-headed and is not kind of all the modern cliche of getting stuff handed to him and think he has a right, or she has a right to be somewhere, then I think we'll be on to a winner. But that's a lot easier said than done.
Devil season this year, again, right in the mix, coming in now to single-figure games. You've been in a fair few title run-ins now in your time in Cardiff. What is different about this one?
We're probably in the reverse of the first year that I was in Cardiff. I think we started a bit slow, and then we were right on Sheffield. No one expected us to do anything, and we were right on Sheffield's tail all that year, and we just unfortunately faltered at the last hurdle with that bad bounce in Sheffield. And that's something I'll never forget, but that drives you on. And but it's little bits like that, and we learn from that. And like I say, we've got Belfast, who are an absolutely amazing team. Right from Bescaroni out, I mean, he's an unreal goaltender, but then you put that kind of team defence in front of him where they hardly give any odd man rushes, hardly any grade A's, and you see how hard it is for us to break them down. So right from the back to the front, they're a great team, and we know that they're going to be chasing us down. And the thing is, the opposite end of the table, everyone's fighting for that 8th spot, so no one's going to give you anything. And the players this year again have gone up even more, and nothing's a gimme anymore, as they say. And we've been saying that for the last few years, but this year's just on another level.
Finally, Ben, a final message from you to the Devils fans for these last few weeks of the title running.
We just need your support. It's a big thing. I don't think the fans understand how much of an impact they can have, and I know this season's been very up and down in some people's opinions. I don't think it necessarily has. I just think it's been a great season. We have to have fun going in, whether you're a fan or you're a player. You have to enjoy it. And if you come into these games, if I pay my money to watch these games, I'd want to have fun. And if you sit there in the stands and you make some noise, it's going to be more and more fun for you, and it's going to be more and more fun for us. And we'll start banging goals in. Well, the guys will start banging goals in, hopefully, and we'll feed off you. And I think if this building's as loud as what it can get, then we're going to be rolling for the rest of the season. And it's just, the fans just bring that noise and give us your energy.
Ben, thank you ever so much for joining us this evening for this chat of your career, and best of luck for the rest of the season and, of course, the Worlds.
Cheers.